Hi, it's Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. With me today, I've got Chris Edmonds, and Chris and I are going to talk about how today's leaders can create an uncompromising culture that does not suck. There you go. Isn't that amazing? Before we get into that, Chris, I always ask people, first and foremost, the first question is always, where can people find you?
People can find me at drivingresultsthroughculture.com, and the most recent website and kind of new information and new interviews and new articles is at goodcomesfirst.com. It's over there.
Yeah. So Chris, what's your story? So how have you got here? Because here's a man sitting there with guitars on his wall, and I know that you have a band and stuff like that. So how,
it's a problem.
How have you got here? What's your journey?
Well, at my root, Tim, I'm a musician, and if I could have made a living at that, that's what I'd have done. Millions of us have learned that there's no money in music, much less so with the changes to the industry over the last 20 years. So I've always been a consultant and a facilitator. So early on, I was training colleagues in my nonprofit YMCA days as an executive, and I thought, this is kind of fun. This is good stuff, and it's helping people. So I stayed on that path. I was blessed to be able to work with the Ken Blanchard companies for almost 25 years. And boy, there's nobody better. Ken is a delightful human, but he's a very, very brilliant thinker about how leaders can improve kind of their lot day to day. And more importantly, how leaders can create an environment where people are respected and validated. And that's where I went. So for the last 30 years, I've been doing culture work, and very much almost exclusively over the past 10. So my first book, The Culture Engine, came out 7 years ago. So here we are with quite a significant update. And this one co-authored with Mark Babbitt, who you spoke to, I think, a month or so ago.
Yeah, I've known Mark for a number of years, and he's a solid social individual.
He absolutely is, and he's hilarious at the same time.
So what, good comes first. What's the motivation behind this?
Really, Tim, the motivation was to kind of help leaders realize that, and we really took this on 3 years ago. So it was well pre-pandemic, but we were looking at generational influences in the workplace and how Gen X's have kind of been had to model the millennials have had to model the previous kind of mindset of leaders, which is mostly command and control, mostly autocratic, etc. Because those baby boomers and those baby boomer thinkers were kind of still in place. And so now we've got Gen Y's really 20% plus, and they're not interested in that old school thinking. Gen Zs are even farther afield from that. So our take was, we need to help leaders look at their work cultures, number one, which they don't typically do. They're really not asked to do that. If they are asked to do it, they may not have the skills, right? But the idea is, how do you create an environment where people want to come to work, where people bring their best, where people will cooperate, where people will solve difficult problems, and it's way more fun. But we have to help leaders get to a mindset that if you create an environment where employees, team members experience good, it's over here, whatever, and they're respected and validated for their ideas, efforts, and contributions, they stay. They fix things proactively. And in essence,
the company innovates ahead of the competition.
Absolutely. People are attracted to the business because it's like, what are you guys doing over there? You don't seem as frustrated as I am with the day-to-day crap in my workplace. But leaders are the drivers. And so that's really where we went. And we had a publisher, God love him, who said, this is not a pandemic book. This is a book for leaders that can benefit employees, team members, associates for years, decades to come. And that's our plan.
Because people make the different decisions about working at companies nowadays. Yes, I've just come from a presentation where they said that Glassdoor was actually they'd had a number of people that had come to them and said, we want to actually work for you because of your Glassdoor updates.
Absolutely.
But so people, in the past, you kind of would have said to, so what do you think about this? Because you were probably only working where you could work was in the local town or what you could drive to, you get the bus to. Now It's kind of global because you can dial in. We've got clients in California, even though I live in London. But the culture, what you want to do is pull the people towards you.
Yeah.
And I think there's so many factors that can actually influence that. So what are you saying in the book that's kind of different? Is this let's all sit around a campfire and sing Kumbaya, or is there some sort of business strategy behind this?
Yeah, it's a huge business strategy, and I always open with what our clients have found when they sustain a culture where good comes first, where respect is as important as results. And we'll get to that here in a moment in a little bit more detail. But leaders have to be bold about defining the culture they want, and then they have to align and refine it. Well, they all rhyme. That's kind of cool. But really, what's the benefit? What am I going to get out of this? So we were very, very clear, and we started this very, very aggressively about 20 years ago to measure, to ask for what are pre-initiative measurements of turnover, of engagement, of customer service rankings. And let's look at post-engagement, post-initiative. And typically it was 12 months to 18 months. And we got consistent numbers from 7 different clients in our first batch, which is that employee engagement grew by 40% or more, 40% in 18 months. Customer service grew by 40% in 18 months. And results and profits grew by 35%. Now, what senior leaders pay attention to is, what'd you say about results again? What was that profitability number again? Okay, yes. But the issue is that people aren't going to bring their best and engage deeply unless you demonstrate that you respect them, you validate them for what they bring, and you let them find their best ways to contribute to the venture, to the enterprise. So that's the piece. The lever about how do we make respect as important as results, again, a couple of alliterative things there, is just as we've had leaders figure out that, okay, to get better performance, I need clear expectations. I need to communicate those. We need to coach. And then I need to measure what the output is and then go, is this on track or not? So we basically plug the value side, the respect side into the exact same formula. Set clear expectations, model, coach, measure the tar out of it, praise the folks that are doing what you want, redirect the ones that aren't. And then the question comes, I'll steal this right out of your mouth, too. How do you measure values? You can't measure values. These are aspirational. No. What we do is we define the values you want into observable, tangible, measurable behaviors.
Right.
And that's what becomes the foundational grounding, and we measure those.
Because we're saying that if people are coming to work and they're inspired, obviously people have good days and bad days, but if people are coming to work and generally they're inspired, then that impacts on the customers, because happy employees get happy customers, and then happy customers spend more money. Therefore, you make more profit.
It's too obvious; it'll never work. So
I saw a post on Facebook. I'm connected to Mark and you on Facebook.
Yeah.
And I saw a thing from Mark where there'd been a review on Amazon.
Yes.
And I thought it was really funny, this review, because it was only like 1 or 2 stars, because it was like, So hold on, let me get this right. So what you're saying is, here's a way that we can make more money for stakeholders, more profits. And because I know the way that this person will work, there's more money to trickle down. Isn't that a good thing?
Yeah. Yeah. And Mark and I spoke about this because it's, what happens as authors, we're putting ideas out there, and we're going to have some folks love it and some folks hate it. And it's like, whatever. But what we came to with this yesterday is, this is not for everybody.
No.
So this is really going to require a mindset shift on the part of leaders, and it's going to cost hours a week. You're going to be there anyway. If you're only managing results, that doesn't always work, because sometimes people are not nice to each other or to customers, etc. So if this leads to respect, leads to engagement, which leads to service, which leads to profits, that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing. And what is fascinating is Mark and I came to the agreement that, okay, so here's a person who doesn't like this particular terminology that she found in chapter 2. Okay, this book isn't for you. It's okay that you don't like it. Take it to a library, give it to someone that
take it down a charity shop.
Yeah. And we'll never speak to each other again, and best to you and bye-bye. But the idea of not only will folks considering good comes first, maybe not all embrace it, because it's a lot of work to manage humans. And we've all experienced that. But
Yes.
if people are happier and they're committed to a purpose that actually benefits communities and customers, those companies where that's in place today, Tim, you know this is true, are not having trouble bringing people in during this reopening post-pandemic. They are retaining staff. Staff are coming to them saying, just as your client was, we want to work for you because your Glassdoor ratings seem almost unbelievably strong.
Yes. Yeah. And you know, I was talking to a guy who works for a very large US software company the other day, and he said, we can't get any staff. And I said, that's strange, because I've worked there. And I said, you know, you actually got a great diversity and inclusion program. You have like a bottomless pit of money for training. You have, and I went through all these things, and I said, you know what your problem is? And he said, no. I said, you never tell anybody about it. So everyone thinks you're this US software company that's a dinosaur. So no one wants to come and work for you, even though you've got all these great things. And you know, okay, the culture is big and corporate, and that's
yeah.
You know, but in terms of that, there's a whole bunch of things which you could tick all those boxes.
Yep.
And nobody says anything, and nobody talks about it.
Well, and that's an interesting shift. And one of the pieces, I did a blog post over the weekend and a video, and I said, you know, years ago, a great friend had a mentor give him wonderful leadership advice, and the mentor said, as a supervisor, the way you treat people that day becomes dinner conversation around the table that night.
Yeah.
Now, what does our table look like in today's digital age? Well, it's Glassdoor. It's all social media platforms. So there's a buzz, and sometimes the buzz is deservedly about stupid, bad, ineffective leadership practices. But too often the organizations that feel like, you know, we're working really hard to have a respectful culture and customers love us, everyone will know. They'll call us. And the reality is you have to be probably more intentional today marketing the good stuff you have, so that people will know about it.
You said, I noticed you said this, that there's no labor shortage, there's a respect shortage.
Yeah, that's it exactly. And we have, that's really struck a chord, Tim, as you would imagine. And it really helps leaders understand that whether or not they've officially signed up to be a proactive work culture manager, that's kind of what they have to do. They have to pay attention to it. And if people are not being treated respectfully, you got to know about it. Well, how can you know that? Well, again, we can define our desired culture in behavioral terms and actually do custom value surveys every 6 months. I've got clients doing tickle questions every week, kind of that pulse survey kind of approach. But if you pay attention to it, then all of a sudden you're going to see what leaders are seen as very much aligned to the culture you want, and those that are not. And then the challenge comes with, well, what about those leaders who are not paying attention, who are not kind, who are dismissive, demeaning, discounting, but they bring in a lot of profits? Well, that then gets to the root question of what kind of culture do you want? Can you get those people to quit being disrespectful? Maybe. Let's give it a try. But if they continue to be disrespectful and you keep them, then this kind of, let's call it kumbaya culture you want is never going to happen. And we don't necessarily need kumbaya, but civil would be really good. That would be a step in the right direction.
And being respectful. And I think that, you know, when I first started in business and I thought I want to be a leader, I thought, well, being a leader is really great, because what you do is you come in and you basically tell people what to do. And of course, and actually it's not that at all. It's getting the best out of the people without telling them what to do, and it's about empowering and stuff like that. And that's hard.
It is.
Telling people what to do is really easy, but the other thing is about, one of the things about leadership is actually to learn the fact that you're not the cleverest person in the room.
Oh no! At least you hope you're not.
Yeah,
you've hired really smart people.
If you've hired smartly, you won't be.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I had a wonderful situation with my son, who took a long drive over this last week, and he grabbed a copy of the book. He says, "I haven't read it yet. Can I have this?" And I said, "Well, I have a few, so no problem." But in his company, he's seeing the flaws of old school leadership. And so he says, I think the only way I'm going to influence this is to actually take on management responsibilities, and I'm not ready for it yet. And that's kind of cool. And I said, well, obviously I'm full of opinion. The book is not difficult to read, but this is hard stuff. And I had a leader. Typically what we help clients do is not only get started by defining, but it's the alignment and refinement that's months of work and must require consistent, dedicated effort. And I had this CEO who was classic old school. His name was Lee. And about 2 years into our coaching relationship, he said, I had an epiphany this morning, and I know you'll want to hear about it. I said, okay, Lee, tell me what came clear to you. He says, I used to see my job as managing results, and now I see my job as managing people's energy. And I thought, that is a wonderful statement about what effective, authentic leadership is, but it's also a clear indication of how far he had evolved.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, I don't like the term servant leadership because it kind of, for me, it kind of presents the leadership in a different light.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's, I remember I've worked for a number of people where we took them from, in effect, we were mentoring the leader, which is where we took them from autocratic, horrible person, to probably one of the most empowering leaders that I've worked for. I remember we were in this session where we were we were doing something, we needed to go to market, and he said, and I said to him, this is just amazing the way you're doing this. He said, well, I don't know how to do it. You do.
Exactly.
Said, with all these Post-it notes, he said, you'll come up with the answer. I haven't got a clue. But the fact of the matter that he admitted that, but for a leader is really, really good.
Well, it builds credibility, and there's such ego often in the leadership role, and I'm titled, and therefore you must treat me this way and do what I say. And it's like, that's really not the kind of leadership that sustains, and it's exhausting for everybody. So if you can create an environment where people are respected and validated for their ideas, efforts, and accomplishments, you've got a good thing going.
So who should read your book? Is it for leaders? I mean, you talked about your son, who's an aspirational leader. So who are the people that should read it?
We specifically say there's tools in here that formal leaders will have an easier time implementing because of their kind of the structure, right? And the expectations, the responsibility that comes. But if you're thinking about being a leader and you know what's coming as younger generations, and you're thinking, boy, I need skills, I need some ways of doing this differently, then this book is really going to give you a great grounding. Now, it's a lot of work. Again, it's 24 months worth of work. But just as you described with Tim, you and your colleagues training up to get your leader to shift from autocratic kind of mean to a much more empowering, much more validating, much more kind of inspiring leader, this book will help with that.
Right. Fantastic. And Chris, this is I don't think it's available here in the UK until December, but
I did not know that. Amazon's got it. I have a dear friend who's helped us with promotion in Australia, and she couldn't find it. Right. So it's now up. So maybe the different markets are cycling, but it came out 2 weeks ago from today in the US, and I know I've heard good things from around the globe. So hopefully London and the UK will come along soon.
Okay, so we're talking on the 12th of October.
Yeah,
2021. So, probably when people watch this, it's been out, or it's out, and it's available on Amazon.
Absolutely.
Right, or your local bookstore.
Exactly. We were so. This is so old school. Mark found it first in a real bookstore, in a Barnes and Noble, and I said, "Oh my God, I have to go to a Barnes and Noble."
It's lovely when you find your own book in a bookstore.
It's just fantastic, and again, it's putting it into more hands. It's making it more available. So, we hope folks will listen to this and be intrigued and take a look at the book.
And you've been on you've been on all kinds of shows and stuff, haven't you? What did I notice? You was it you or Mark had been on some morning breakfast show or something?
We did, and that came up very, very fast. We have our publicity firm again has got, remember Rolodexes, right? Has got contacts throughout the globe, and the local Fox morning show said they're right here, quote, in town, kind of. Come on in. We didn't have to get up at 4 a.m. But what was delightful was it was 4 minutes. So it's very, very, very fast. But interest continues to grow about the labor shortage. No, it's a respect shortage. And we can fix all of that.
Fantastic. Chris, thank you so much for spending some time with us and sharing your insight. I really appreciate it.
Tim, I very much appreciate it.
You're welcome. And as I say, all on Amazon or in good bookstores, good comes first.
Great. Tim, thank you.
Thank you, Chris. And where can people find you? Remind people again.
drivingresultsthroughculture.com or goodcomesfirst.com.
Brilliant. Thanks, Chris. Good to talk.
Thanks, Tim.
Bye.